Life Unrehearsed on CJD 800, brought to you by alavida.ca. Celebrate a life well lived before or after death.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family life. So your life isn't going exactly as planned? Well, you're not alone, and we're here to help out. My name is Matt Del Vecchio, specializing in free retirement home search and senior transition support, here with my co-host Corrie Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss. Coming right up on the first half of the show, how is it that simply 2 words, Beaver Tails, automatically brings a smile to your face? Corrie, I'm smiling.
My hips are expanding as we speak.
You can't help. Yeah. Certainly one of Canada's greatest treats. Well, today in studio, we have the owners of Beaver Tails, and we're going to hear about how a summer job evolved into heading up the delicious and highly successful franchise of Beaver Tails. Corrie, can't wait to hear about that.
No, me either.
But before, I want to hear a little bit about this crazy week that you had and some renovations at home.
You know, renovations they can be lovely when they're done. But this week in particular, this is the slow end of about a 5-month process. But this week we actually had to move downstairs because we were staining the stairs of our house. This is called Survivor. We made our home version of Survivor.
Home
and
Armageddon.
I thought that somebody was going to be kicked off the house. But we made it, and it is stunning. So there were it's a long process, but well worth it.
Way to go. I can't imagine the sanding, but you have some beautiful oak floors that are shining now. So, God bless you, and survive downstairs with the kids and everyone. Yeah. All right, what do we have coming up on the second half?
Coming up on the second half, let's talk about the unimaginable thing happening. Her son, Shane, he died in a motorcycle accident 15 weeks ago. Today, Elaine Wiegensberg is in the studio. She's going to talk to us about that incident and how risk-taking can affect the entire family and in fact, what she's doing about it.
Yeah, an incredible story. Elaine's here in studio. Mm-hmm. Very courageous even just to be here talking about it live. Can't wait. And that's going to be on the second half after the 4:30 news. And let's get started with some Beaver Tails here. For anyone who has not been around this earth for the last few years and you don't know what a beaver tail is, those are those deliciously addictive whole wheat Canadian pastries served hot with your choice of delectable toppings. My favorite is the Nutella with, I guess I got to go with Reese's Pieces, which I had at the Rib Fest in Pierrefonds a few weeks ago. And we have in studio with us the proud owners, Pino Di Ioia, his wife Tina Serrao, along with Pino's twin brother, Anthony Di Ioia. Thank you, all three of you, to be in studio with us.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, you've been around since 1978. You have a little over 140 points of sale around the world. We'd like to hear a little bit of history. So, Pino, let's start with you. How did you get started?
Well, talk about living life unrehearsed. It was a summer job that wasn't meant to be. I applied for my dream job and unceremoniously got refused midway through the interview. And so when you don't get the job you wanted, which was with Esprit Clothing at the time, selling clothing, you go for the backup job, and everybody can get a job in fast food. So I started working at La Ronde as an employee 31 years ago.
Unbelievable.
And more unbelievable, they never fired me, which is why we're still here.
So you started working there, and then what?
Slowly but surely, these two guys, my wife was my girlfriend at the time. Mm-hmm. My twin brother was still my twin brother at the time. And so slowly but surely, we would, from buying that first store as a franchise to then buying, we went up to 14 corporate stores at one point of our own. Lost half my hair in those days. And then from there, we ended up buying the rights to the province of Quebec. And then also unrehearsed, any franchise that grows quickly runs through a few problems. The guys in Ottawa were ambitious, but maybe didn't have the operational resources. And so they ran into a couple of problems in the early 2000s, and we were brought in to run the whole company. And then 9 years later, we ended up buying the majority of the company. So it's really step by step.
Such an amazing story. And it is right, step by step. And who would have thought that we'd be sitting here on CJD 800 Life Unrehearsed talking about your story? I have to hand it to you. Your marketing is incredible. It is an iconic brand, one of the most known brands in Canada. So hats off to you. And when I'm serious, you say Beaver Tails, you smile. It's amazing. So, what is the secret sauce for your marketing?
The secret sauce for our marketing is that we're super humble, and we are Canadian, and we do a lot of public relations. And so we're very fortunate to be in the right places at the right time. And so we're in tourist and leisure locations. So where you're having fun and making memories. And so that kind of does its own job of marketing, because you're always posting, you're always talking about, you're saying, oh, guess where I was on the weekend. And so it just kind of spirals, and it just evolves, and it's very organic.
That's Pina. No, it's not. I told you I would mess it up. That's Tina talking with Pino and Anthony about this incredible franchise called Beaver Tails, which is not only incredible, it's also quite delicious. There's a lot of really cool stories associated with Beaver Tails that I even know from the news. Can you share some of them with us?
Well, we're always particularly proud, maybe especially these days, about Obama when he visited Canada. The one stop he had to make was, and we didn't know. We really were not involved in that in any secret way. But they had to make a stop for Beaver Tails. And that really, I think in a big way, that put us on a map. Our American recognition single-handedly went up from that day forward.
It always surprises us that there's people who come to the store and they say, could we have a special tail prepared? Because we're getting married and we want to celebrate our upcoming marriage here. And when you start digging a little deeper, they tell you we actually met at this store 6 years ago. And that's how it started. So the amount of people, this is what we mean by word-to-word and mouth-to-mouth advertising. You can't come up with that stuff. I mean, and that's the people who tell us, I was pregnant, my husband drove me to get a beaver tail. And the record is they drove to our Ottawa store from Toronto. Not once, but twice in one pregnancy.
He really loves
Still
her.
together.
That's right. Yeah.
Maybe she was having twins.
Right.
Well, sometimes you refer to it as a love brand, and it's true. When you're having a beaver tail, usually it's good memories, and you're marketing love brands. And can you expand a little bit on that love brand?
There is definitely an emotional connection. The things that we talk about when people say, like, when we used to own our own stores in Montreal, for example, entire wedding parties would come up and take their bridal photos in the store. And I would stand there and I did not understand, like, they're going to get dirty. How does this work? But it was their first date. And so it's like all of those things. And when you talk about like Beaver Tails and, do you share it? Do you get your own? People say, I never share it. My boyfriend always has to get his own. There's something about it that, like, it's the warm pastry with the melted butter and the everything on it. It feels good. So I think all of those things tied together is what makes it special in that regard.
So I know that you have a whole host of brands and kinds of brands, and I really want to hear, because Matt and I were kind of debating about which was the most popular and most requested, and so we even just driving, as those of you who listen to Life on Rehearse regularly, Corrie and I drive in together. I pick her up, and we drive away, and we had a debate the whole way through as to what the best flavor was. And as I mentioned, I think I look at it as a pure delicacy and comfort food, and not worry about the calories. You're allowed to treat yourself, and so like I said, I prefer that Nutella and the Reese's Pieces, and I think you were mentioning just the cinnamon, right? I said the cinnamon. I'm a simple girl, so
it's my favorite.
Although my husband wouldn't agree. And regardless, we want to know. So we have to take a quick traffic break. But when we get back, we are going to talk about what is the most popular flavor, and if there's even some unusual flavors that are new or floating around. Stay tuned for that as soon as we hear from Lauren Glazer in the traffic center.
CJAD 800, brought to you by alavida.ca. Celebrate a life well lived before or after death.
Who can take a sunrise? Sprinkle it with you.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corrie Serrao with my co-host Matt Del Vecchio, and we are talking with Candy people, the owners of Beaver Tail, Pino, Tina, and Anthony. I won't even attempt to say the last name. They're with their beautiful families are all here, and we're having this really nice exchange and learning about really the incredible company that they have managed. And it's no surprise that it's successful because these lovely people are here. How could it not be? Before the break, I asked if there was a most popular flavor and also maybe some tidbits about some new stuff coming up. So let's start with the most popular flavor.
So believe it or not, the two that are always in the top two running are the classic and the chocolate hazelnut. So you guys were bang on. And
So the classic is the...
The classic is the cinnamon sugar. So there's no need for you to argue tonight at home. You can all agree that you both chose the winning flavor. We go
Corrie.
And we go through so many of those. I mean, I don't have the number for the cinnamon sugar, but we go through 42 tons of chocolate hazelnut per year. So you can just imagine that we have a lot of fans who love that flavor.
Right. Dentists love us.
Right, Tina, just to expand on that, we were talking off air about some of the new flavors that may be coming out. And tell us a little bit more about those.
We're always working on new flavors. We have a couple in the pipeline right now. We have fans who are constantly asking for the poutine tail. So it's basically poutine on a tail. We call it the poo tail. But there's always great ones. We're experimenting with Fruit Loops and Cocoa Puffs and all kinds of really great things.
And you have seasonal ones as well, don't you?
Yes, there's pumpkin spice coming up for fall. And we're talking about a Christmas one or a holiday one. We haven't decided on it yet, but we try and do some fun short runs, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Now, you talk about this. You talked about the tons of chocolate. I got to ask the question. Calories.
So
what are we running? What are we thinking?
Short story. In Toronto, in Ontario, we're now forced to put the calorie restrictions or the amounts right up on the menu board. And when they first went up, we had a bet in the office that the first person who called us was not going to be to complain about how high, but how low. And in fact, sure enough, the first caller was a mom who said, I just want to confirm, I see 385 calories. That's the number for a cinnamon sugar. Is that for a whole or for a half portion? And when you are Canada's indulgence, we're not necessarily entirely proud of being so low calorie because we're here to give you a treat. But for the cinnamon sugar, it's only 385. It goes up to 620 for our higher, the triple trip, which is Madam my favorite.
But amazing. You wouldn't, I would have thought. I would have thought it'd been more. So great. Not necessarily going to make that 3 meal a day feast, but no, great.
Not a good idea.
Now, obviously, you and Pino in particular, you and I go way back, and I know how hard your family has worked in building this. And first of all, congratulations. And
Thank you.
What are some of the keys to success?
Well, it's funny, when we were talking outside, it was a different context, but you've got to be having fun. Mm-hmm. And there's times in our history where the three of us are blessed in so many ways, the success of the company, the health of our families, but we work together. I don't think I could work without my twin brother or my wife. That's usually weird, but in our case, it really is fun. And it makes going into work truly delightful. And we try and share that with the greater staff. But there's been times in our history where for different reasons, different concepts we were working on, and it wasn't quite as fun, and that's time for pause. And it doesn't happen every year, but every 4 or 5 years we take a step back and say, okay, what do we have to change to make sure that this really remains fun? Life's short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, so true. So true. And just talking about, we talked about over 140, it's not just Canada, right? What countries are you in?
Dubai, Japan,
Korea,
Mexico,
France,
and every time we think, I mean, the Japanese story, we talked about a Love brand earlier. I mean, that's a fascinating story. He was at home watching the Olympics being held in Banff, saw a favorite skier of his cross the finish line and said, I have to have a beaver tail. And he's sitting in Japan watching all this, fell in love with the brand, and flew over to Canada to get a taste and to eventually meet us and buy the rights to Japan. So,
yeah.
That's another great story. You know, the thing that was most, I don't want to say surprising because it shouldn't have been surprising, but I guess heartwarming was looking on your website and seeing about this whole section about community responsibility. And that really warmed my heart. I'm a community person at heart. And so can you talk about that piece of your company?
Yes, we are very proud to say that we support food banks across the world, wherever our stores are. And we partake in Hunger Awareness Week, which is coming up, and World Food Day. So check out our website and find out where we are. But we give away pastries in exchange for a monetary or canned good, and it goes to local food banks. So we try really hard.
They really do. For those just tuning in, you're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Del Vecchio here with Corrie Sirota, and we have the owners of Beaver Tails, Pino, Anthony, and Tina, talking to us about how they've gone from, I guess, working a summer job to where you are now. So fantastic. It doesn't come without a little bit of pain. And what are some of the biggest challenges you're in the food industry? I mean, this is tough business. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you have to face?
Well, from a business perspective, it's a little bit dry and mechanical, but the biggest challenge is always people, whether it's our franchisees or our supplier partners or our frontline employees. And we talk about community service. Indirectly, probably the biggest community service Beaver Tails gives is we employ thousands of young kids as a first job.
Right.
And that could set them off the right way or maybe not so much the right way. And we have to work with our franchisees to make sure as much as possible that it's the right way. That's our reputation on the line. And it's such a heavy burden and obligation, but also opportunity to have these kids start off and actually enjoy a job. So people remain the biggest challenge. And that's the balance of business. I think nowadays you owe it as a business to give back to your community, but you won't be doing that for long unless you also remain competitive. So balancing that eternal trade-off with all our suppliers as well. We tell our suppliers all the time, you are our partners. Right. We're not here to get a little bit lower price on the 42 tons of chocolate. We're in this for the long haul. But it's not always believed, frankly. It's a complex. People are complex. That's what I've been told.
And I also think that of any industry, the food industry in particular, about their foods, and I imagine there's all kinds of health and safety regulations and standards that you have to adhere to that can also make it very challenging.
There are, and it's also difficult when you're in the tourist and leisure environments we're in. The great news is if you're having a beaver tail, chances are you're on vacation or having fun. The terrible news is if you're having a beaver tail, chances are you're on vacation or having fun. We have to live up to that. All of a sudden, we're part of the tourism industry. We've got to make sure we don't ruin your one memory in Banff or etc.
Yeah. Pressure. Oh, gosh.
So true. We have about 30 seconds left. Future plans. I know you're looking in the States and you're continuously. Any real quick future plans?
We're always looking to expand in the States. We have a couple of big ones coming, hopefully on board soon. So we're not at discretion to announce them yet, but we invite anybody and everybody to keep visiting our website. And you could see details as we have a location page, and you could learn more about the company and learn more about some of the new locations that we're heading to.
Well, that's great. And time is up. Pino Di Ioia, his wife, Tina Serrao, and twin brother, Anthony Di Ioia. Thank you to all three of you and your lovely family who's in studio here. If you're all watching us on Facebook Live, you can see them all. Their whole crew. I think we're, 8 people here in studio. Thank you so much for joining us. How do people get a hold of you?
Social media, for myself, LinkedIn, Facebook, or pino@beavertails.com. I actually answer pretty much all my emails. I'm not afraid to put it out there.
He really does. Thanks for having us.
Yes,
thank you very
much. So much.
Thank you.
Happy Labor Day.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
So, coming up, the unimaginable happened. Her son Shane died in a motorcycle accident. Today, Elaine Wiegensberg is in studio. She's going to be talking about that incident and how risk-taking affects the entire family and what she is doing about it. Stay tuned for that. Now we're going to head out. We'll be hearing the news shortly.